Hello, everybody. Welcome to an episode of In My Opinion. My name is John.
My name is Lester.
And today,
Yes.
we're going to be talking about something that has happened recently. Not extremely recent anymore, but recently and important enough to have a conversation about.
Yes. Actually, it's not exactly very recently, as you said. It has been like a month-ish. I've been trying to like put off hold. I was actually putting off like talking about this because I wanted to get a female guest on the show with us to talk about this issue. But then I was talking to some of my female friends as well, and they were saying that like actually we should be able, like we should just do a conversation between the two of us, like males, because like we are part of the male community and we should be able to like talk about this let's go controversy in like from the male's perspective to like, own self check own self, like we don't need a female to be here to like give our opinions or anything. So
in case y'all didn't get that, okay, so today we are going to be talking about the Let's Go controversy.
Correct.
Basically, for those of you that don't know, Let's Go is this podcast group. They were recently called out, on the internet for passing, sexualized comments, misogynistic comments, and then like why it spiraled a little bit because like, the fans and themselves, they defended their decision. President Halima also even got involved to ask them to apologize. Basically, it's a little bit messy. Yes. But today, we're just going to try to talk about it and then we'll see whether we can shed some light.
Correct. And for those people who are not familiar with what happened, or I think nothing happened already, but so what happened, we're actually going to link a Share News article down in the links below, description box below. Correct. Share News, what's up? But like, yes, you're going to link the article down below. You can go and like look through it and get yourself caught up with the whole saga. So yes. So right out of the gate, John, do you feel like, okay, what's your opinion like about the Let's Go saga, or like what Let's Go said in their podcast?
Okay, so you must understand I'm not much of a news reader, so I'm just gonna go off based on what I found out and what I've actually read up about okay. But basically, right, from what I understand is that like Let's Go passed some comments, but the thing about it is that they actually submitted an apology that was like deemed insincere, correct?
Yeah, so after when it first blew up, they actually had a 10-minute podcast episode, episode-ish. Then if you go and read it, or hear it in this case, like people were saying that it was not very sincere. They were like essentially defending their stance more than apologizing for the hurt they have caused. And only after President Halima Yaakob came up with like asking them, like came up with a whole statement asking them to apologize. Yeah, did they like actually post like, I think it's a Facebook post or like text apology, like properly apologizing for what they said. But
yes. I remember this.
Yeah, so do you feel like, okay, so I think it's great that they eventually apologized, but what do you think about like the first podcast apology?
Okay, I did not watch that episode, so I don't want to go in depth into what it is, but basically the title, I remember it being like, to whoever it may concern, this is for you or something like that, right? Something wrong with so I think it's, I mean, firstly, it's good that they took some action to respond to the community. But at the same time, I think in a moment like this, right, where there's like some outrage, right, they ought to have been, how to say, a little bit more tactful with how they handled that situation. Because like, I think with the way they handled it, the community didn't necessarily appreciate what they did. I don't want to claim to know that they are sincere or insincere. Right? Because like I believe that's rather subjective, and I don't want to be taking a side here, but I feel that like personally, if I was offended and then I received something like that, right, it's difficult for me to understand that as a form of apology. You know what I mean?
Yes. I mean, like this whole saga, or like actually most controversies you see, I don't think it's a Singapore thing, or like generally most like hotly debated topics, most of the time the two camps end up being more polarized at the end of the day than being together and like coming to a common conclusion. And I feel like that apology or like that video was like a good chance for them to step up to the plate and like actually apologize properly and bring the two sides together properly. But instead it like made it even more polarized. And that's what like I feel like was like the most disappointing thing to me, is because like I feel like we have to be able to admit to our mistakes, right? Like even for, IMO like as a podcast, because I mean when I first heard the news I was very scared, because we are a podcast, IMO is a podcast, and like they also are a podcast. So like I immediately my mind went racing thinking of all the things we possibly could have said wrong. And like I think like I feel like if someone really does call us out for something wrong that we said, I hope that the two of us will be able to apologize better and like be able to step out of the plate and be able to admit our mistakes. And I think that's like
I think for us it's fine because I don't know, I'm okay with apologizing. But okay, before we continue at this point, I think it's important to let you all know, especially those of you who are watching, loyal viewer, okay? We're trying to have as intellectual a discussion here. So do join in and then leave in the comments below if actually something we mentioned, right, was not quite in line with what you believe. We always enter this type of conversations, right, ready to have our mind changed. So, it's fine. Open this topic with us. But at the same time, adding on to what I was mentioning earlier about how I feel that like, they could have come off as insincere and stuff like that, right? Yeah. I still feel that like a lot of the times they are a bit missing the point.
Okay, so what
on both sides?
The point? Oh, on both sides.
On both sides. Yeah. The fact that like they also made like Okay Let's Go and their fans mentioned that like there was this I don't know if their fans did it or Okay Let's Go did it, but someone mentioned from the Okay Let's Go side that it's like a systematic attack on them, a coordinated attack.
Yeah.
To like sort of, you famous, then you're trying to take me down, that kind of thing lah. Basically, that's what they implied. And then that's why like they were very defensive with their actions, and then they were justifying and stuff like that. And then on the other hand, the people who were offended and trying to right this wrong, right, was trying to push forward their agenda also to let them know that like, hey, what you did was bad, what you did was wrong. But like this was flying over each other's head because I think this whole saga was born from a place of ignorance.
Okay.
And not from malice.
Okay. So you feel like they didn't like purposely want to, I mean, I'm sure they didn't, but like you also feel like they didn't purposely want to like degrade women or like the things they say are not meant to hurt them lah.
No, I don't think that was their intention at all. But the thing about it is that like I feel that a lot of times that people pass off these type of comments as like, hey, it's just a casual thing. Why so it's the equivalent to like your friend angry. Like, hey, don't so angry at you. When you don't understand what makes them angry in the first place. And then you feel that like they are being angry because they want to target you when that is not the case per se. And then it's very easy to respond in a defensive manner instead of apologizing for the incident. You feel that like it's an attack on you rather than a calling out of a particular incident or an action.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's where what I mean by like there's a disconnect in terms of ignorance, because it feels like, hey, you're targeting me when that is not the case. Right? It might sound like that. And in fact, I feel that some of the more toxic comments are definitely intended for that. But the crux of the issue here is that they're not being targeted on a personal level. Right? They're not being called out on a personal level. What's being called out is like their action.
So like actually, let's talk a little bit more about the action. So it's something that has been in the like kind of people have been talking about it ever since the Donald Trump incident about the whole like him saying grab her by the pussy thing. So like he dismissed it as locker room talk, and ever since then, he has been like kind of a buzzword. Like basically, guys talk about girls in like demeaning manners amongst ourselves and all that.
Right.
So do you feel like there's a place for locker room talk in our society?
Okay, this is gonna be tricky, and I'm gonna say my opinion, but like it might get a little bit controversial. But hear me out, okay? Yeah. So basically, I feel that like locker room talk, right, has a place in our society. Okay. But the thing about it is that where I feel this place is sometime in the past. So today, I don't think there's any more room for locker room talk. And why I say in the past is not because in the past it's any less disgusting or any less any better in the past. No. Yeah. But because, right, society back then, why is it that it's okay to make this kind of to make this type of comments in the past, right? It's purely because society didn't even know that this was something wrong. Society hasn't grown, we haven't advanced enough to know that this was wrong. And unfortunately, this lesson came really late for people like us, for men like us. That actually this has been offensive to women for the longest time. right? So I do get it when people say, hey, no, locker room talk. It's a very backward way of thinking because like just because last time can, how come now cannot? You know, that's usually the reason. That's usually what is implied when people say, oh, it's just locker room talk. They're passing it off as the like, chill lah. Last time people also say this, but like I justify it by saying it's just locker room talk.
It's like last time can and why now I cannot.
Pass off.
Yeah,
it's trying to pass it off. You know, trying to play off people's offense, which is not fair, right?
Yeah,
and like if you think about it objectively, when you actually step away from the conversation and look at it objectively, right? Locker room talk that objectifies people, that like is a little bit more, how to say, inappropriate and stuff like that, right? It doesn't feel comfortable when you take yourself out from the conversation and look at it from the third party. If you substitute this woman or this particular person, right, with a name or with a face or with somebody that you know, more often than not, right, that does not feel comfortable. Why? Because when you just that person, this woman, that whatever, is a very dehumanizing third person angle. It feels like this person, whatever you say, it does not relate to you. So it's very easy to not feel that, not feel the emotional tag that comes along with it. But when you actually say that, like, when you in your head, you objectively step back and you substitute, say that my daughter into that conversation, or my mother or my sister into that conversation, right? Suddenly it feels a little bit less good. Suddenly it feels a little bit less locker room talk. Why? Because deep down we know. Deep down we know that this is something that is not appropriate when we target it to a particular person. Right? We know this. Yeah. And that's why I feel that locker room talk has no more place in society. Yeah.
And I do feel like the whole like, hey, last time why I can do, now I cannot thing is a very flawed argument. Because, I mean, society has evolved and thankfully we have, because we have done some pretty messed up shit in the past lah. And like the easiest way, actually John and I talk about this off camera a little bit. The easiest thing that you can relate to is like racism and slavery. Like, looking back, we can all agree that slavery was bad. It was like shouldn't have happened, straight up terrible. But like but like at that time I'm quite sure it was like A-okay, right? It was fine. No one saw, like, maybe not no one, but like a large majority of people didn't see a problem with it. But doesn't mean that you can do it now. It's because we have evolved and we have learned as a society.
Exactly. This is a very, very good example, you know, because like slavery, right, is something that happened in our recent history. And back then, right, even governments were able to sanction this toilet is for colored people, this toilet is for white people, or whatever, like that kind of racial distinction, right? But to do that same kind of conversation in today's society is vile and disgusting.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
What is the reason? Why? But why? Right? The reason we want to tackle here is why. We don't want to just talk about the change, right? We want to understand why. And why is because society has advanced to the point whereby we as a species have realized that you cannot say this kind of thing anymore, that it's vile and disgusting.
Yeah.
Right? As a younger species back then, we either didn't know or just didn't wish to acknowledge how bad it was. And now that we are more educated, we owe it to ourselves, right, to also grow along with this new society. And hence act accordingly and appropriately to this society, to this new society. Right? Because there are benefits that we reap from a new society as compared to last time. Like, for example, last time how can do podcasts, right? Now can do podcasts. Why? Offline, right? We move forward in understanding of media and stuff like that. Drawing this back to OKLETSGO's incident, right? What I feel it's inappropriate and like it's not fair to want to continue to cling on to these kind of things. Yes, it may have been the tool that propelled, you know, your content forward to where it is today, right? But at the same time, you need to understand that like these are things, right, that have become more offensive because society has become a better place.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the amount of offense has always been the same. It's just that now we all know how wrong it actually is. Last time we have an idea only. Last time we have an idea only. So this is a sign of what? Of growing up, right? Of society growing older, becoming more mature, and as a species, we're becoming more mature and more compassionate as a result.
Yes.
So the thing about it is that like things that last time, right, you didn't have to apologize for because it's an injustice, right? Now right? People are very clear that it's an injustice, and hence you cannot do these kind of things anymore.
Another example will be like for our own podcast, actually, let's call ourselves out, right, for once. So our first IMO episode was actually called the Wuhan virus. If you guys go and look, the thumbnail is still Wuhan virus. And it's actually quite a bad thing to say. And like looking back, it's like, wow, that's a terrible thing to say, because now everyone it makes it very easy for people to like be racist against Asians or racist against Chinese people. So
yes,
that's why like eventually when people start to realize that, hey, maybe it's not a very good idea to call it Wuhan virus and call it nCoV instead, or like when COVID-19 was the name, call it COVID-19 for scientifically accurate name, right?
Yes.
Then we actually went on to the next COVID episode that we did. We actually call it COVID-19. And like other news publications did it as well, like Straits Times, the first few articles that they written were all Wuhan virus, Wuhan pneumonia, etc. Then eventually they changed it to nCoV for COVID-19. And it's not that, it's just because like we understand that society has evolved. It's a very short period of time, maybe like a period of like 1 month or so, but it has evolved in that time. We understand the repercussions of our actions and words, and we decide to do better.
Exactly. And like I think in this particular situation it's very clear, because you see, right, the thing about OK Let's Go and other podcasts, all podcasts in that sense, right, even though you can market yourself as like the alternative media, the non-mainstream voice and stuff like that, right? You must understand that you exist on a platform, right, that is as public as mainstream media. Right? In our situation, for us, right, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, right? For OK Let's Go, they're mainly on Spotify, right? Excuse me, and things like that, right? So being on these kind of public platforms, right, means that you also have a public responsibility for appearance on this platform. Right? So as a result of that, right, it doesn't mean that just because you can provide a style that is alternative, right, doesn't mean that you can be offensive.
It's not a free pass,
unfortunately, you know, and like a lot of times when people call this out, right, it's not in an attempt to silence you. You know, that should not be the defensive place that you head towards. You know, that should not be the like, oh, you're trying to silence me. No, that is not necessarily the case. As a result of bringing justice to how people talk, right, yes, certain things get silenced. That is without a doubt. Okay, that is without a doubt. But there are many ways to bring that crude style of humor in without being offensive. Right?
Yes.
You want to like, this is a practice on being compassionate here. You want to always imagine that the listeners is the most innocent, impressionable, personal person you have. Right? Who is in this particular sexy situation of the opposite gender. What if your daughter is the one that listens to this, right, and does not know better, and as a result of that, right, grows up thinking that, hey, you know, this is the type of labels that I deserve to receive, or this is the type of stories that like people just jokingly joke about, and even if I feel upset about it, I don't really say. That's not fair, right? When we put it in this perspective. Right? And if let's say this loved one is the one that comes and tell you that, hey, you know, I'm not comfortable with that, is that a silencing of your voice?
No.
Or is that something that you realize that you have to do better because of this person that you love?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
and this is where it is. You know, this is where it is. Always thinking of the, oh no, I should have done better, as compared to the why people want to target me. Right? And this is where what we're trying to say.
And actually, like the whole, okay, so why don't we like take a little step towards like the OK Let's Go fans, and like let's try to think from their perspective a little bit, because I think especially recently, the whole like rise of PC culture or cancel culture has made a lot of things like a lot of people very sensitive towards these sort of things. So like, I mean, I think we are all very familiar with the whole like SJWs, like negative connotation that's being like attributed to being a social justice warrior. So like when people say, oh, this girl like SJW, or this guy just SJW, they immediately like dismiss the person as being overly sensitive and like try to silence everyone. I mean, so what do you feel about like the whole PC culture or cancel culture thing that's happening right now? I mean, like in a way, our consumption and media is actually becoming less and less like edgy, quote unquote edgy. So do you feel like is this the right step to take, Or do you feel like, hey, maybe what Okay Let's Go fans say about the whole like PC culture thing, they might have a point in it?
Okay, so I think, right, I mean, I feel that this is slightly separate things, because like the way some of the fans reacted from some of the fans and supporters from both sides that reacted are incredibly inappropriate and incredibly unfair to either side. But let's just focus on one thing here, which is what you mentioned about cancel culture and stuff like that, right? I feel that cancel culture, right, is a double-edged sword. You know, it's something that can become very dangerous very quickly.
Yeah.
Right? Purely because there is this vigilante aspect to it. Especially if you are emotionally invested in this particular topic. Let me explain. So basically, right, when you call someone's bad behavior out, right, especially if you're emotionally invested in a topic, right, especially if, let's say, you want to talk about sexism, right, a lot of times people are very invested in this topic because, yes, we acknowledge for a fact now that throughout history, right, women have been oppressed as compared to men for a lot of issues.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's very easy for a woman who is defending this view, right, to be emotionally invested, which is not wrong, right?
Yeah, they don't have they are the ones that are being discriminated against. They're the ones that are being hurt. They don't have to like take on the responsibility of being level-headed as well. Like that's
that's fine. I mean, it's fine that you're emotionally invested.
Yeah.
But the issue, you know, with that, right, is that it's very easy to see this person as purely as an enemy.
Okay.
And forget that this is also a person. And as a result of that, right, you start to target this person. And like, you know, I mean, the worst of it, we've definitely seen on the internet, people wishing for their deaths, people calling them out for their behavior by adding some other negative like terms to it, like scum, don't deserve to be whatever, you know, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
That's when it gets a little out of hand. Because I think, right, there is a reason why we have a judicial system in a society like ours, like the world society, right? When we have a judicial system, what do? We call the authority on someone's bad behavior, which faces the court of law, and then after that, this court of law will determine the sentence.
Yeah.
Right? Cancel culture is slightly different, and why I mentioned that there's a little bit of vigilantism, because it skips the entire process. Whoever calls this person out is essentially judge, jury, executioner, and news headliner.
They decide like
right?
what's the social death that this person has to face because of his actions.
They may not decide it, but they will be able to push it in that direction. Right?
Okay.
Which is incredibly, you know, I wouldn't say incredibly, it's not super fair to this particular individual, especially if this individual, right, is able and capable to learn the lesson and become a better person. And that's when I feel it has crossed the line. So when I feel like whenever you call out a certain bad behavior, certain trash situation that you've noticed, right, we want to always separate the issue from the human, from the person. You know, as much as we always want to try to give our criminals of serious crimes, you know, a second chance to recover and rehabilitate into society, we want to also remember that these people that we encounter and we cross swords with on the internet deserve that same chance. Deserve that same chance to become a better person. Right? And that's why, you know, it's valid that a lot of people are disappointed when they don't receive good apologies and proper apologies from people who are called out. But it takes another type of person to go one step further. You know, when they receive a poor apology, they still wish for the second chance in this person. You know, and that's where cancel culture could have steered towards. But the reason why, you know, it has received such a name called cancel culture, right, is because people jump to cancel instead of rehabilitate. You know,
I feel like at the root of it, right, is like a lot of people feel people are not able to change. Like people who do bad behavior are not able to do better and not able to change. So like once a scum, there'll always be a scum, essentially.
Yeah. No, and like, no, this is something that actually, I mean, you brought out a very valid sentence here. Once a scum, always a scum. Right? Once scum, always scum. But scum, like I mentioned, right? When you call people a label like this, right? It is, you know, I read it somewhere, it is a very dehumanizing term. Right? And when you dehumanize people like that, you take away the individual from this conversation, it's easy to hate scum. But it's difficult to hate Brandon. Right?
I get what I mean.
It's difficult to hate this person who is a father of two and a family man who did this. It's difficult to hate this type of people. But it's very easy to hate scum. Right? And this is where it gets a little bit out of hand. And this is where that lynch mob justice comes in, you know. It's very easy to be like, let's all lynch the scum. He's always going to be scum. When you forget the Brandon behind the scum, the father of whoever who is behind the scum, the mother of how many people who, you know, behind the whole life of good is torn down in this one moment.
I feel like this is like quite a controversial thing, like the whole, like, does a person deserve to be called scum, or like whether the person deserves a second chance at rehabilitation. But I do feel like the whole overlying message of IMO, and something that both John and I really believe in, is that people all have the ability to do good and all have the intention to do good, which I feel like is a bit idealistic at times, like to feel like everyone wants to do good. But I feel like
actually I do not share that sentiment with you about how everybody wants to do good. Yeah.
Okay.
But you know what I believe in? I believe that everybody, mine is a little bit different. Okay. I don't really necessarily believe that everybody wants to do good.
Okay.
But I believe that everybody inherently wants to do better.
Okay.
They may not know.
Yeah.
They may intentionally be shit. They may whatever. But I believe with proper conversation, everybody wants to be better. Nobody wants to, I'm trash. I know I'm trash now. I'm gonna stay trash. No one wants that. No one wants to do that. People always want to become better. And that's what I believe.
Yeah. And like going on that belief, I think is the reason why cancel culture, we don't like really fully stand behind it, is because oftentimes the cancel culture doesn't leave room for improvement. It's just this girl or guy has done something wrong. Let's end this girl or this guy's life as he knows it, and that's it. There's no like, hey, let's call him in and try to get him to improve as a person, and like give him a chance to be a better person. There's often not this. There's often just, okay, like for example, recently Jenna Marbles actually got called out for some of the very offensive videos that she did in the past. I think she did blackface.
I never follow, but yeah.
So like Jenna Marbles is a very famous YouTuber in the past, and she did some very, very quite offensive videos in the past, like very, very long time ago. And she just got recently called out. And because of that, she's quitting YouTube and everything. And like people were like giving her a lot of hate. And I feel like that's where the line comes in. I think it's okay to call out and say that, hey, what you did in the past was not cool. But I don't think it's okay for you to like say, oh my god, because of this you have to step down. I think the same goes with like the Tosh, like last year, I think Tosh and the Pink Dot incident, like he actually tweeted some like anti-gay tweets in the past, but because of that he got called to step down as a Pink Dot ambassador. And I feel like that's not the right way to do, because I mean people change, and like if he did say something bad in the past, you should be able to give him an opportunity to step up and be a better person, instead of saying, hey, stop, like we don't want you at all anymore.
You know, this is a very good example, because I the thing about it is that I agree that whenever somebody does something out of line, right, or somebody does something that is not good, be it in the present or in the past, right, they deserve consequences. They deserve to face the music.
Yeah.
Right? There has to be some kind of like quote unquote punishment that comes along with bad behavior. Right? That's justice, right?
Yeah.
But where it gets problematic, right? Where it gets problematic is that when people feel that it has to be, firstly, their brand of justice, or, right, when justice is served, they think it's not enough. And that is where it gets tricky. And this is where I bring back that court example, right? When our criminals go through the judicial system, right? There's no, people may decry that there's not enough for the sentence too light or whatever, but there is a proper chain of command, proper chain of events that has to follow, right? To bring a heavier sentence. And usually this action is taken against who? Not the individual. It ought to be taken against the system.
Yeah.
Right? The judicial system to ask for a higher sentence because this is not enough. In the realms of the internet, right? A lot of times when certain things are not enough and the name calling still does not make it enough, right?
Yeah.
People take it into their own hands. You know what is the default thing that people do in cancel culture whenever something surfaces, right? Tag their employer, send death threats to the rest of their family and their family's loved ones, right?
Yeah.
And what is that behavior? That's lynch mob behavior, right?
I mean, it's kind of doxing as well, right? Which is illegal.
Yeah, but that's the lynch mob behavior that I'm talking about, right? One person say they're no good, right? Then we kill everyone around them and make them suffer. That's the loan shark behavior, right?
Yeah.
Instead of attacking the house that owe them money, they spray paint on all the neighbors. Is that fair?
No, not at all.
No, right? Yeah. But the difference is why? There's no physical harm, so you're not a criminal. And you would always think, oh yeah, I'm absolved, I'm serving justice. No. That's vigilantism and that's not fair. Right?
I agree.
And then you congratulate yourself for serving justice and finally taking a small step in improving the situation. But are you really improving the situation?
Yeah. Actually, we talked a little bit about this in like online vigilantism video that we did. And we did an episode about online vigilantism. So if you guys want to know more about this, you can actually go and check out the episode. But
yes,
I think going along those lines, I think, okay, let's assume that the whole cancel culture, like the way people call, let's say we assume that the way that other people call these perpetrators out is like in a responsible way. Let's say they do something bad and then they say like, hey, not cool, we hope that you do better, and they allow them to do better. But eventually, it will lead to what we call like PC culture lah. So as like a person in media, right, do you feel like very suffocated from the fact that now there's this PC culture thing that's happening?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I think this is a perfect opportunity to leverage on the shift, the mindset shift in culture and the type of content that we can or cannot produce.
Yeah.
You know? Because it's very interesting. Like I mentioned, right? I always feel that you must remember, firstly, you're an individual and the people who are listening are individuals. And the second thing you must remember is that you are a functioning member of this society, right? As much as you suffer under the things under this society that are not so good, you reap the benefits from this type of society also. And as a person who reaps this type of benefits from the society, right? I have a responsibility to move along with this moving society as well.
Yeah.
As society grows up and away from the past, I have to grow up and move away from my past as well. So yes, sometimes I be okay. I'm just gonna put it out there that everyone in their life has said or done something that they are not proud of.
Yeah.
Everyone. Okay.
Yeah.
There are no saints. There are no such thing as saints in our society.
Yeah.
And you want to always be a more compassionate person and think to yourself, what if someone, right, resurface these things about me? You know, will I still want to be able to improve myself? And then this will determine how you react. But coming back to how, you know, whether PC culture has affected the way I don't think it has affected at all. You know, in fact, it opens new opportunities because we live in a society that's very simple. As it advances forward, right, some doors close and some doors open. Right? I don't claim to know the opening is faster or the closing is faster or more open than more closed. I don't know that. But I do know that when some close, some open.
Yes.
And as a result of that, right? It is your responsibility as someone who works in media, who creates content, right? To move along and create the same new thing. Right? Keep moving. You know, bring new things. But what keeps you relevant is your own style, right? Style is just style. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, what can we call style? Style is very subjective. Like, for example, the both of us have this purple light behind us. That's style. Right? But the stuff we say, right, will have to change. Like last time, we don't want to call, we didn't, before it was called the coronavirus, you know, just now you brought out an example. Before it was called the coronavirus, everywhere in the world it was called Wuhan pneumonia.
Yeah.
But now we know that that's not fair to the people in Wuhan. and not fair to the people who were in China, because it actually encourages, like what you mentioned, discrimination.
Yes.
So now the whole world changed to COVID-19 and we changed it to COVID-19 as well. This is a perfect example of how in a span of half a year, we change and adapt with society.
Yeah.
Because we want to be more compassionate, and also because, like you mentioned, we work in media, we produce content. So this is actually a very valuable lesson for everyone, you know, who makes content and does things on public platforms like us. Right? Don't see every bump in the road as an attack or a silencing, or as someone trying to push you out of the game. Not necessarily. I think the first question when you receive, you know, pushback, right? The first question that you ought to ask is why.
Yeah.
Why? And if you don't know this why, okay, and this is also extremely important. If you don't know this why, be the one that reach out to the person to tell you to stop and ask why.
Yeah, you have to go and find out
because
by yourself,
because no one else can tell you why. If you sit here and echo chamber with your friends about the why, you're never going to arrive at that answer. You know, if someone is upset with something that you've done, right? Go in, have that conversation, ask why, and be ready to have your mind changed.
Yeah.
And when you do that, right, the next step will be clearer. And if it's not as clear, at least you all both can have that conversation to come to a compromise.
I agree.
And that is how we solve problems in this society right now. Ask each other why, invite each other over.
It's
not
like
physically, because I am now social distancing, but yeah.
It's like a conversation, right? Like we talked about
Exactly.
it at the start of the episode. We talked about like polarizing, like basically two sides are being polarized even more now. Like no one's reaching a common ground. But the whole point of having conversations and being able to check ourselves as a society is to be able to find that middle ground and a common ground. And the only way you can do that is if you go in with an open heart and open mind and be humble.
Yes.
And unfortunately, most of the time, I wouldn't say it's like one side's problem only, because it's a two-way street. Both sides has to come to the same common ground. And it's like, I think now it's just everyone's just being fueled by rage and emotions a lot of times, not just for this controversy, but like for many other situations.
It's very easy. Okay, I feel that it's the easiest emotion to feel when someone tells you something that runs counter to what you believe. You know, even I'm pretty sure we're all guilty of this. When people tell you something that runs counter to your beliefs, right? The first reaction would never be like, okay, tell me why. You know, explain it to me, or rather, convince me. You know. Never. That will never be the first reaction. The first reaction most of the time is that no, you're wrong. How can you? I'll tell you why. Okay, then we blah, 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 then it becomes a war of words. At the end of the day, instead of coming together to solve the problem, we push each other further away by being more polarizing. And then, as a result of being pushed away, no answer is ever arrived at. And
going back on the whole PC culture thing, like I personally, I don't know about any other people in the media, but I personally never felt like this whole PC culture is a huge problem. And I don't like feel the urge to say things that are counter to what society thinks you're able to say. And I feel like if you want to say these things, like let's say society tells you to not say certain things, like maybe don't say the N-word, or like don't say sexually explicit things, right? I think the immediate reaction you should be having is like, why do I want to say this so badly? And why do I need to say it on such a public platform? Like, is there a need to, or you just because you just want to be edgy and you just want to be anti-establishment or something, or like want to prove a point? And oftentimes, if you ask yourself that why, you won't be able to come out with a very good reason why you want to do it, other than
most of the time the reason is very simple, because I want.
Yeah, which is such a weird reason, right? Like someone is being hurt by what you say. Like the whole, let's say the sexually, let's go back to the OKLETSGO incident. The whole like sexually explicit comments, they like really degrade women to a point where dehumanizes them. And like I can imagine like impressionable young women who watch it, they might end up growing up thinking that like, oh, I'm supposed to be treated like this way. I'm supposed to be like, they won't know their worth because of what these people have said, and this is what they grew up on. So like,
that is not a 100% thing.
Yeah.
Right? But like I mentioned, we are now a more sensitive society, right? We need to understand that, like, as much as it's not a 100% thing, right? As long as it's not a 0% thing, right? Then there is a call for you to be more responsible as the person who says things, as the person who does things, right? So like the thing about it is that, is there a way to mention certain topics without being offensive? Definitely, right? In fact, I think crude humor is never going away, right? Everyone in the world enjoys once in a while a little bit of crude humor, but crude humor, there is a very fine line between crude humor and offensive humor, right? Yeah, offensive humor very easily alienates the people you're offending, and as a result, people laugh at the expense of these people. Crude humor is something that's a little bit more subtle, and this is where the balance has to be struck.
Yes.
You want to be entertaining, you want to hold true to your essence, but at the same time, you also want to be responsible about what you say. Because we are in a more compassionate society.
And we should do better, and like we should want to do better anyways. And we should
nobody asks you to be preachy, right? Nobody asks you to be, we're always, on the right side of society. Yeah. No. Do whatever you want, but do whatever you want responsibly.
And I think the best comedians actually told that line between crude humor and offensive humor very, very well. So one of the few comedians that come to mind is Louis C.K. I don't know if you guys know Louis C.K. But like, I think recently he's gotten into some trouble. So like maybe not the best example, but if you go and listen to his like comedic, like stand-up comedies, and you actually go and you realize that he actually tackles a lot of like very controversial topics like gay marriage, like race, and everything along those lines. But the reason why he's still able to get people of different races to come to his show and enjoy his show is because he's able to toe that line very, very well. And I think as a content producer, you should be able to like think a little bit about that line instead of just doing what you want and then just go like, hey, if you guys don't get it, then like screw the haters, It's not a responsible way of going about doing your content.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think we said pretty much everything that needs to be said. Do you have any final thoughts, John?
I think this topic is like a very good conversation starter, especially since this happened in our country and it involved our head of state, right, which is President Halimah Yacob. Yeah. So I think this is a very, how to say, worthy conversation starter for people who have differing beliefs. So I highly encourage you all, right, to actually have these conversations with people that disagree, with your point of view. But you want to always approach with an air of vulnerability and kindness, so that you make it very clear that your intentions is not to harm or to offend. Yeah. Your intentions is to understand. And this is especially important when you do not. Right? So I encourage you, whoever it is, if you watch this show, leave it in the comments, let us start that conversation here. And if y'all have any other opinions about what we're saying today, we would like to hear it, because after all, this is an issue that we can address in this one singular episode, but it is an issue that does not exist in this just one singular episode. It goes on and on and on and on and on, and eventually it's going to be a part of our lives all the time. Just that this podcast is just a nice highlight on this issue. Yeah, this is something that happens every day in our society and around the world, right? And we don't want to just sound like preachy assholes that just tell you what to do, right? We want y'all to have this conversation with us. And remember, like I mentioned, whenever we have these conversations, invite people to come closer and be ready to have your minds changed. Yeah. And only then, and only then, okay, if everyone has conversations with their minds ready to be changed, can we achieve a better place in this society.
I agree. And like, I think once again, we just want to emphasize that, like, John and I have not been like the models, like model people or modern human beings throughout our entire lives. Like for me, throughout my 23 years of life, I'm quite sure I've said some things that I need to apologize for, and like some things that shouldn't have been said. But I do hope that men, especially in this case, like for this OK Let's Go controversy, men are able to like step up to the plate a bit more and be able to fight this fight along with the women in our society. Because
Yes.
I mean, they have been holding that torch for a long time already. Like women's rights has been a problem since like the dawn of time. Like it's been a big problem ever since the start. And
Yes.
the fact that they have been like the majority of the people fighting for their own rights is like rather sad, because they are the ones that are being discriminated against and still have to fight against all these things. And I feel like we as men, and like we all know women in our lives that we all respect and love, and I feel like we should be able to join that conversation and join that fight with them and step up a bit more in this whole fight for equality. And I hope that past this OK Let's Go incident, we are able to like come to a better common ground, as John said, like be able to step into more giving and more like more generous conversations versus like being very closed off and like trying to hold on to your values or like your beliefs.
Yeah. Don't think of each other as enemies. Don't think of the other person as a them and us. Don't think of it as that. Just think of someone that you haven't actually asked properly what their opinion about this topic is about. You know, and when you stop to have this kind of civil conversations, right? Suddenly you will be enlightened to a lot of things. You know, you'll be enlightened to a lot of things.
I agree. And with that, I think we have come to the nice end of this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any opinions, please leave it in the comments down below. I know it's a controversial topic, so you guys probably have a lot of opinions. So just go ahead and leave it down below. We will comment and we will answer you guys. And by we, I mean me. But John,
and go to our Instagram page also. Oh yeah, I also got comment, okay? Please go to our Instagram page. Yes. Okay, we got a new Instagram page. In case you don't know, don't worry, the link is below.
Correct. I keep forgetting to plug the Instagram, but yes, this is our plug.
Go to Instagram.
That's right. Thank you guys so much. See you guys in the next one. Bye.